Here we go. Welcome to the video. Basically what I'm going to be doing is a full rundown of SPAQ, or Spartan Energy Acquisition Corp, which will soon to be known Fisker, and the ticker will change to FSR. But basically I'm going to be explaining the whole business side of what Fisker is trying to do, and I'm also going to be displaying every single significant time frame on the chart and the different factors. So I fully charted out the daily, the 4-hour, and the 1-hour chart for different types of trades. I put in the entry levels, the take profit levels, and the stop loss. So that is going to be coming in a second, but before I start, I want to begin with some disclaimers. First off, I am a shareholder. I have been for 2 or 3 months, something like that, but I do own SPAQ and I have owned it for some time now. Just want to be completely straightforward about that. Moving on, I also want to note that any trades in both the stock market and crypto are at a higher risk right now, and the main reason for that, or there's multiple reasons for that. You have the elections that are literally next week, you have COVID, which the cases are starting to rise again, and then you have the back and forth with the stimulus bill and when that's going to happen, if it does happen. And then finally, nothing I say here is financial advice. I always say no chart, no matter how good it looks, can ever have more than 85% probability. So that obviously applies here and it applies everywhere. And then in terms of like the technical analysis of the stock market, literally just one thing I want to know. I called the S&P, I called the recent rally, but then when it got to a certain level, I noticed you had daily hidden bearish divergence. So I also call that, and then since then you've been dropping. So not only do you have fundamental risks, you also have the chart not looking too great in terms of like the general stock market, and it looks pretty similar on different indexes as well. With all that being said, let's get into the charting, and then after that I'm going to go into the fundamentals. So starting off with the most significant thing on the chart, and I'm going to be going through 3 different time frames, and they all just pretty much help each other out. But just to start it off, I revealed this yesterday, and it's been pretty good since. I mean, it was only 1 day, but basically the price was 10.33 over the weekend when I charted this, and I noticed we had a bullish butterfly harmonic, which is a rare, extremely bullish pattern. It was created by Thomas Bulkowski, I believe, which is a very well-known trader and author for trading. So basically what this pattern is it's basically an XABCD 5 pivot pattern using Fibonacci, which is a universal code. I'm not going to go too much into that, but if you want to learn about Fibonacci, it is course video number 6 on my channel. Make sure to check that out. But yeah, it's a very complex pattern. It's rare because you need 5 different points to line up with the correct Fibonacci retraces. Just change that song. So yeah, it is complex and it is very meaningful. Now if you want to see an example of how great this pattern is and why my targets are so high, with a 14 reward to risk and a 32 reward to risk, let's take a look at Nikola. Earlier in the summer, Nikola actually painted the same exact pattern, and when it got to the pattern completion zone, or the PCZ of the pattern at this D letter, it went up 51% in 3 days. Now I also said yesterday I do not think SPAQ will obviously go up that fast. It's also a smaller pattern. I mean, Nikola does have a smaller pattern by far. As you can see, this was around 1 month of creation, so much smaller than the one I'm currently looking at on SPAQ. And generally speaking, the longer a pattern takes to form, the longer it takes to play out, if it does play out. But at the same time, the larger a pattern is, the more reliable it is, so that's a good thing. But yeah, crazy stuff happened when Nikola had the same exact pattern, went up 50% in time. In a very short time, and then in SPAQ you can have that happen in a longer time. But going back to SPAQ, it looks good with this bullish butterfly harmonic. It's a crazy pattern. Personally, I'm still learning about these patterns because of how advanced they are, but they are reliable, and as I just showed you, it's not a joke. It is something very big, and that's the daily. So the way I set this trade setup was, yesterday I said 983 was the pattern completion zone because that's a 2.618 double golden ratio Fibonacci extension. Again, I know that might sound confusing. Course video number 6 on my channel if you want to learn about Fibonacci. But yeah, that was 983. and I said that last night. And then today actually you opened at 10:33 and you fell down to $9.81, which was 2 cents off the buying line, the support line. So yeah, 2 cents off. And then on some exchanges it was actually like literally $9.83. So if this does play out and if this pattern is valid, which again nothing is ever certain, but if it is, it would be pretty cool to call the bottom on SPAQ. I'm not saying I did yet, it still needs to be confirmed on every single time scale, so I'm not going to get too ahead of myself there. But yeah, the buy zone is pretty much in between $10 and about $9.60. You don't need to be literally at $9.83 for this pattern to be confirmed. You just need to be like in the general area within a couple percent. So that's why the buy zone is that. And the stop loss is 948 because that would be far too low for the PCC. And then you'd also, I mean, there's really nothing looking left after that. Don't worry about those words. Those are just from my live stream before. But yeah, that's the stop loss of 948. Also under the $9.50 psychological support. If you want to learn about that, of course, video number 5 on my channel. I just don't want to get too much into random things right now. And then the take profits for our harmonic is the C level, which is your second swing high of the pattern, and the A level, which is your first swing high of the pattern. And that would put you, if you're talking about the first target, which has a 14 reward to risk, really good. Anything over a 3 reward to risk is usually what I take personally, and obviously this is much greater than that. And that would put you at $15 for your first target of this long-term trade. It could literally take months to play out. And then you have second target, which is like 76%, or it was 76%. It's going to be a little bit more now because the price is lower. It was 76% the last time I saw it, and that's at $18. So 32 reward to risk right there. You're trying to gain 85% for a risk of 3.5%, and it's crazy. And if you want to lower that stop loss because you're comfortable with risking more than 3.5%, go for it. But it'll be a little bit iffy if it goes under 948 for that pattern completion zone. But that's pretty much, let me just put down the music a little bit. That's pretty much your daily chart. Super bullish. I wish you did have some sort of bullish divergence, but you do not on the daily. What you do have though is the fact that you are oversold on the daily for like pretty much the second time. I'm not going to count this first time. And of course, both of the times you were oversold before, you had a massive run after. So yeah, that's the daily chart. And if you want to take a screenshot of the trade setup, that can take a really long time to play out because it is a big pattern. Let me line that up for you. And there you go. That is your long-term trade setup for SPAQ. I'm also going to be showing a short-term and a mid-term trade setup. There you go, that's your daily. Hope you took the screenshot. If not, rewind. Now let's move on to the 4-hour. Now the 4-hour, in my opinion, is probably the worst looking time frame currently on the SPAQ chart. You had a falling wedge, but you broke to the downside of it, which is terrible. People were talking about a whole lot of reasons why, and there is a whole lot of reasons why. We had immense selling in the last couple of weeks, but I don't want to go into rumors and just a bunch of random things. As a trader, I don't like speculating, I just react, you know what I'm saying? I don't expect something, I react, and that is something I learned from Mitch Ray. If you want to check him out on YouTube, pretty much taught me all of this. But yeah, this is like your swing trade, the midterm type of play. And basically the idea of this is you have a chance of getting potential classic bullish divergence. And with the significance of the pattern on the daily, and what I'm about to show you on the 1-hour, it could definitely help out the case of this negative momentum going back towards green, since the 1-hour and daily chart look good. So yeah, what you want to see, you only got one waning wick right here. You want to see this continue to move back down towards green, so you can get classic bullish divergence, which pretty much means a lower low on price and then a higher low on your oscillator. You are also oversold on your RSI on the 4-hour, so that is another thing. Most of the times you were oversold, you had a nice bounce after on this chart. And then the entry zone is the same as the long-term trade setup, about $10 to about like $9.60 $960-ish, around that area, you know what I'm saying, like $960 to $10. That's your pattern completion zone on the harmonic. And I actually made the targets different for the 4-hour. Basically, you just have a supply line right here, or a resistance line, and usually when you just have a resistance line and not much of a demand line, the simplest way to target that resistance line is using Fibonacci. So definitely learn your Fibonacci. The video is on my channel, and typically the 50% retrace is where you achieve with the highest probability when you have a downsloping resistance like this. But let's just say you don't even get there. You have a pretty big resistance at 1255, which is your first target. So your first target, 1255, 7 reward to risk, and then your second target, 11 reward to risk, with a sell at around $14. So the swing trade is 1250 and 14, with a stop loss at the same price of 948. Basically, the idea of the 4-hour swing trade is to get assistance from the daily harmonic pattern in order to create classic bullish divergence. And if that can occur, you're probably gonna come to test this supply line, and if you can break out of it, those are your two targets: 7 reward to risk and 11 reward to risk. So let's move on to the daily, the least significant time chart in terms of probability, but it actually looks good for an hourly chart. So here you have confirmed classic bullish divergence, which is what we're trying to get on the 4-hour, where you have a lower low on price with a higher low on your MACD. You're obviously really oversold, being under 20 on your RSI. So you have the oscillators looking good. Then you also today broke out of this extremely small downsloping channel. So this is like, I wouldn't say this is a day trade because I don't think it'll happen in one day, but I mean it could. But I think this is more of like if the 4-hour is your midterm swing trade, the 1-hour is like your short-term swing trade, if that makes sense. So you have the 1-hour chart I'm showing you right now being your short-term swing trade, the 4-hour chart being the midterm swing trade, and then the daily being the really long-term trade. And that's why the daily has the best reward to risk, the 4-hour has the medium reward to risk, and the 1-hour has the least reward to risk. But what you get with the lower time frame is a higher probability of it playing out much faster than the higher time frames. I think I worded that correctly. If I didn't, I think you know what I mean. But yeah, the idea of this is you go to your golden Fibonacci retrace, which is also, again, this is a 1-hour chart, so it's pretty unreliable compared to the 4-hour and daily. You have a little resistance because you used to have support at 1110, which is also your golden retrace. So that is the target using the breakout of the downsloping channel and the classic divergence. And this is actually the only time frame where the stop is a little bit different, and it's not 948 because you're not playing off the harmonic, you're just playing off its flag. So the stop on this one is about like 965. It's a little bit higher because actually, as I said yesterday, 983 would be the pattern, like the literal pattern completion zone, and today you actually tested it about 2 to 3 times. You went down to 983, what I was talking about on Sunday night, and you tested that like 2 to 3 times today, and you bounced off of it every time. So that's great. That's what you want to do at the pattern completion zone. So yeah, that is your short-term swing trade, and I also have the merger vote just so you can see when that will happen on the chart. That can obviously swing the direction in either way. In terms of risks for all of these charts, there's definitely risks. I'm going to talk about them from a fundamental standpoint, but also in terms of a technical standpoint. Your risk is the fact that you're under $10, which is a psychological support resistance level, and then your risk is also the fact that no chart is ever 100% certain, and also another risk, the fact that the 4-hour needs to put in some work for all the planets to line up, as Mitch Ray would say. Shout out Mitch Ray again. So yeah, you want that 4-hour to develop classic bullish divergence. And since you have classic bullish divergence on your 1-hour, and since you have a huge bullish butterfly on your daily, those two could kind of drive the price up from a technical standpoint, and that could create waning momentum on the 4-hour to create potential classic bullish divergence. But yeah, I mean, as long as you do not come under this level on your MACD and you eventually go back to green, you're going to have classic bullish divergence because you're already at a lower low. So yeah, those are your 3 charts. Feel free to go back and screenshot them. But if you didn't get a chance to, if you look in the bottom left of your screen, I post daily on my Twitter. I post charts, I post the updates of the charts, and just random news I see relating to cryptos and stocks. So check me out there. Make sure to subscribe if you just want more free trade setups and charts and stuff like that. And that is your whole entire technical standpoint of SPAQ. And now, just to like end off the video, I'm going to go into all the fundamentals. I have a list over here. I know all of these things mentally, but I don't want to forget anything, so I wrote them all down. So let me get some water and we're going to go over that. Alright, starting off, we're going to be talking about the positive catalysts. First off, Fisker recently said that they already have 7,000 to 8,000 pre-orders of the Fisker Ocean. If you don't know what Fisker is and you're not coming to this video as a Fisker holder, Fisker is basically an electric vehicle company that is aiming to create really efficient electric vehicles for the lowest cost on the market for the electric vehicle sector. So they already have about 7,500 or so pre-orders, I assume, and that would put them, let's say if all those people were to actually buy the cars for the starting price at around $37,000, that would put their current revenue in the millions, which for a company that literally hasn't even technically IPO'd yet, that's good. Then you have the Magna manufacturing deal, which was announced either last week or the week before. Basically, Magna is very well known in the automotive industry, and they can definitely help ensure investors that these cars will come out at a good time. I believe their release plan is around the end of 2022. So with the help of Magna, that can just help ensure that they get all the parts and the timeline stays intact. Then you also have the merger vote, which is literally this Wednesday on October 28th. So I don't know if the merger vote is going to drive up the price or it's going to drop the price. Again, I do not expect anything, I just react. Then moving on. If the merger goes through, you have the ticker change from SPAQ to FSR or Fisker. And a good deal of people remember Fisker from 2013, which I'm going to talk about in a second or in a few minutes, but I do think that the publicity of actually being called Fisker in the stock market will help it out, because unfortunately the name of this ticker is literally SPAQ, but with a Q, and then if you take SPAQ and you put a C at the end, it pretty much means a special purpose acquisition company. And we've had a lot of those SPAQs this year, and in the last month or two, like 90% of them have dumped like crazy. So now when people hear SPAQ, they just run away. And unfortunately, the ticker of this SPAQ is literally SPAQ. So it's just a weird thing. So I do think the ticker change will help it out in that scenario. And also the fact that it will finally be an IPO of Fisker rather than Spartan Energy Acquisition Corp. And then the next positive catalyst is just the overall fundamentals of the electric vehicle space right now. Tesla has definitely paved the way and proven that electric vehicles are here to stay, and that they do have really good benefits, even in terms of performance, not even just in terms of like being eco-friendly. So I mean, California already said they want to stop combustion vehicles from being produced in like a decade or something like that. And then both Biden and Trump said during their first debate that they supported the electric sector. Those are your current positive catalysts. Your negative, not positive, catalysts are, first, as I just talked about, the SPAQ sector dumping. Then you have the stock market uncertainty that I talked about in the beginning of the video with COVID, the elections, stimulus, and the fact that most indexes have daily hidden bearish divergence, lower low on price, higher high, or lower high on price, and then higher high on your MACD. I've done a bunch of different charts in terms of like the indexes. Then another negative catalyst is Apollo Management, who owns a part of SPAQ and is initiating the merger with them. Their co-founder is facing serious allegations concerning ties to Jeffrey Epstein. So we can just look at the Apollo chart if I can find it. So yeah, Apollo's been dumping. I actually had a trade set up at $44. The target was 48. It literally went right to 48 before dumping, and that news has definitely hurt Apollo. So that's just another thing to add to the list of negative catalysts. So now with the catalyst being out there, I am going to pretty much end up everything with the overall business fundamentals of Fisker. So I just talked about Apollo in a bad way, but Apollo, before this recent bad news, had a great quarter before. If we look back at the Apollo chart, as you can see, in the last earnings, you had a 282% surprise. Even though the price did go down, they had good earnings. Their balance sheet looked good, and they are a profitable firm. So you do have Apollo working with SPAQ or Fisker, soon to be Fisker. Then you also have Magna, which is known well in the automotive industry. And what Magna can basically also do, just aside from ensuring the production of these cars, is lower the cost of production for Fisker. A big issue that Tesla and other electric vehicle companies have is they need to create these giant factories to produce all of these cars. And Fisker doesn't really have to do that since they're outsourcing the production to Magna. So that's really good in terms of the profit margin. So it just leads to low cost of production and lower resources that they need to have on standby, lower real estate needed. And then another business fundamental is Henrik Fisker, the owner of Fisker, hence the name Fisker. He does have a past in electric vehicles. I made a joke on stream the other day. Don't take it too serious, but I basically said Elon Musk and Henrik Fisker are like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates of the electric vehicle industry. They both really paved the way for electric vehicles. And the reason I'm saying this is also because Fisker had the Fisker Karma, which was a great car back in like 2013, 2014. It was really expensive, so only like celebrities and people who could afford it owned it. But in terms of performance, it was good. It was an electric vehicle. The original Fisker didn't do too well because of like the business side of it. I guess they weren't making profit or whatever the case was, not too sure. But I think their new business model is really good, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But just in terms of this current car's performance, the Fisker Ocean, their first vehicle of the new lineup, you have a 250 to 300 mile range, vegan recyclable interior, which is definitely millennial focused. Especially in California, there's a big culture around renewable sources, so that is good in terms of finding a new market and capturing that. Then you have a third row option, family friendly. You have a great design. Fisker has worked in designing cars for BMW and I think Aston Martin somewhere else. But if you look at the Fisker Ocean, you are literally tripping if you don't think it looks like a great SUV. It looks really good. And then if you do the subscription plan, which is what I was going to talk about, you can get 30,000 yearly miles with no commitment. Basically, if you ever want to return the car, you can just return the car through an app. And like their whole entire purchasing program is through the app. It's called like Flexi, and that just makes it really more efficient, especially for the new type of generation who just want things quick. And the fact that you can give it back will help a lot of people be more comfortable with taking that leap to electric vehicles. So that's that. And then in terms of their general business plan, I think one area in which they're really going to be changing the game is their subscription plan, where you have a down payment and then you pay like $380 a month for the car, kind of like a lease, but with no commitment and the fact you can return it at any time. So especially in the electric vehicle space, I think that is very unique, and that will allow for a lot more customers to be coming in, especially in the earlier stages compared to Tesla. Like I was reading somewhere, and don't quote me on this, that currently Fisker has more pre-orders than Tesla did back when Tesla was at the stage that Fisker is currently at, if that makes sense. And of course Tesla does have more expensive cars, but then again, like this is what I'm saying, the general way to talk about Fisker right now. This is the most efficient, affordable electric vehicle. It's not the highest premium for electric vehicles in terms of performance, but in terms of dollar, one second, let me just change the song. In terms of dollar or efficiency per dollar, no other electric vehicle company can compare to this, which is what Henrik Fisker brought up on Mad Money with Jim Cramer. So yeah, they're dropping a crazy car at $37,000. That looks great, and that's a very new, rapidly growing industry. So that's great. They also brought on Bill McDermott to their board. He was the CEO of SAP SE, and he grew that company from 40 billion to 150 billion. Currently, he's running ServiceNow, which is a digital workspace, and what he can really help Fisker with is scaling up their company to the market and to the new market. He already did this in the cloud business workspace industry, and then he can take that to Fisker. And as I said, they have an app where their whole entire purchasing program will run through, so he can definitely help out a lot with that and scale it up. And then the final thing is their marketing approach. They're bringing on a lot of brand ambassadors. Fisker talked about that recently. I've already been seeing a bunch of social media influencers posting the Fisker, and it's not even coming out for 2 years. And Fisker himself said they're going to be having a lot of big names being announced very soon. So look out for that. And then finally, the last marketing approach they have is they're doing like a road trip with the prototype, taking it to different cities so people can see it. And they do have a drivable prototype. It's not like what Nikola did. So I really think Fisker will make a dent fundamentally in the electric vehicle space. And then if you look at the chart, like how I did in the first half of the video, you have a lot of things lining up around that $10 to $960 range. So yeah, that pretty much is a full rundown on Fisker. It took me about half an hour. If you support what I'm doing, I'm going to keep on doing it. Posting daily on my Twitter. In the bottom left, wait, it'll look like there, right? Yeah, because the camera's like flipped. Yeah, over there you have the Twitter at Champion Vibe, where I post charts daily and notify you when I'm live. And then you have the subscription button right here, so hit that button. Doing this all for free. Just want to help people out, and that is SPAQ for you. Peace out, guys.